We celebrate indie games on a daily basis here at I Dream of Indie Games, but every now and then one shows up to stink up the place. Here are 5 more of the worst indie games we've ever reviewed at the channel. It's worth noting that we will have links to all of these reviews in the description box below if you want to check them out just out of morbid curiosity. You know what else really stinks? If you haven't checked out our Patreon over at patreon.com/idreamofindiegames and you're still being force-fed AAA game coverage from the Gaming Echo Chamber, head on over there for Discord access, exclusive live streams, early ad-free shows, a new podcast, and so much more. Your community is waiting. Oh boy, here we go. First game up. The wound is still a little fresh on this one. It still stings. The shockingly bad Enchanted Portals. So the idea behind Enchanted Portals was basically to be a Cuphead clone, but it gets it all wrong. Seriously, this game nearly gave me an aneurysm and pushed me to the brink as a reviewer. The real shame here is that while not nearly to the level of Cuphead, some of that 1930s-esque hand-drawn visual style in Enchanted Portals actually looks okay, particularly the bosses, but everything else in this game's just a disaster. Enchanted Portals has awful randomly generated level design, clunky controls, glitches, copy and paste looking assets, and dreadful, nearly unplayable co-op. Enchanted Portals tries to mix the gameplay up a bit by having a specific aura color around certain enemies that you need to match to your bullet type, but much like just about everything else, the execution falls flat. It was so hard to come up with positives for this review that at some point I just couldn't even do it. That's a shame because obviously we want every game to be amazing, but that just isn't always the case here at I Dream of Indie Games. Enchanted Portals was a huge dookie that just wouldn't go down the drain. I played it for hours. I tried my best to advance. Oh, these are the reviews that keep you up at night. Hopefully, my review was helpful to some of you if you did see it, or perhaps this video will be, but please avoid this game and avoid all the stress I went through. Let's keep the shit train rolling with Wanted Dead up next, a game that on the surface looked like a pretty cool concept. This third-person action shooter attempted to mix Ninja Gaiden style combat with Gears of War pop-and-shoot gameplay, but much like old gamer Joe after a vasectomy, it shot nothing but blanks. Dreadful voice performances, glitches, crashes, and half-assed boss encounters made this one of the worst games I've ever played on the channel. You'll take control of Hannah Stone of the zombie unit and trudge your way through level after level fighting brain-dead morons and dealing with lame minigames. One of the only redeeming qualities of Wanted Dead is if you want to get together with some friends and laugh at the long drawn-out cutscenes for how bad they are. It's nonsensical, the action is bland, and the police station sections are cringe. Avoid Wanted Dead at all costs if you can help it, and if you did grab it at that full price, it was expensive. I'm so very sorry for you and your wallet, but we make these reviews for a reason, so please watch them. Moving along, wow, for as good of a year 2023 was, apparently we had quite a few stinkers. My god, where does one start with Stray Souls? This may honestly give Wanted Dead a run for its money for worst game of 23. Dreadful pacing, poor combat, cheap and lame scares, horrendous writing, what else? Stray Souls is an unfinished mess, with the only redeeming quality being some decent visuals at times. The game is completely illogical, damn near unplayable, and much like the other games, worth a laugh with friends and that's about it. Each chapter has you exploring areas without much direction, trying to find items or solve puzzles, and you'll meander about each new section for what feels like an eternity. Bumbling and bumping with clunky controls, Stray Souls also suffers from awful technical performance and has no inventory management, which is a cool idea, but the execution here is just so sloppy. What's really aggravating though is the fact that some of the creature design is really phenomenal and the soundtrack is pretty great. Sadly, that can't save this abomination, which shall live in the Indie Krampus playlist for all of eternity. Now we're going back to the early days of the channel. We didn't hand out the Indie Krampus 3 years ago, but rest assured, if we did, Indiecalypse would have earned one. You play as 3 different characters who are setting out to make their own video game, and what the developers were trying to convey were some of the challenges and struggles that go into game design. While Indiecalypse makes some attempts at humor, the jokes are so awful that I didn't laugh a single time, not even a snicker. The odd, dark tone doesn't mesh well with the writing, but worse than that, the gameplay is just so bad. This is essentially a series of really poorly crafted minigames that are based off of classic indie games. Not a single one of these games is very much fun, they run poorly, and aren't worth dealing with at all. Sure, the visuals are okay-ish, but other than that, This was a complete trailer truck on fire, and I wish I could wipe it from my memories forever. Alright, last one for this list. We are again going back 3 years. Take one look at this title, WeakWood Throne, and you get that mobile game vibe, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but the gameplay is just terribly uneventful and boring here, unless you love chopping grass. Who doesn't love chopping grass? Yay. WeakWood Throne is essentially a series of side quests with poor, sluggish combat that doesn't feel fun at all. There's no story to take in, the fantasy setting and soundtrack is beyond generic, and all you can really say is WeakWood is, well, weak. Poor Silent Signs was nearly put to sleep with this game, but speaking of sleep, I think I've had about enough for one video and I'm gonna go get some rest. So you let us know in the comments below, did you play any of these wretched indies? We'd love to hear from you. Here's to more awesome indie games in the future and less of these. Voice to the voiceless, and I will see you all on the channel.